So after all the excitement with the new Either model releases and the concern about many of the new Herpa Wings releases, I thought we'd take a step back in time, not too far, just a couple of years, to a time where Herpa models at least still came with wings that were not added with a 90-degree angle. With that, hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where we today will take a closer look at a Boeing 777-300ER of Qatar Airways. At the front of the box we have a cutout so we can get a glimpse of the aircraft model inside, and on top of that we have the Qatar Airways branding. Now, the back side of the box is not a big revelation. It has yet another cutout. Overall, a quite terrible box design. The only thing of interest here is simply the fact that this is a limited edition. And here she is, the Boeing 777-300ER in the retro livery of Qatar Airways, introduced at the 25th anniversary of the airline. And the good news is that, of course, Herpa can still mess up this livery, but at least with this model they can't mess up the standard Qatar Airways livery with the lovely grey tones because, well, it's not present on this model. But, I mean, to be fair, Herpa also did not mess up the latest Qatar Airways 787 in the standard livery because, and I quote the Herpa Wings product manager Stefan Külgen, "It wasn't the wrong color, they just printed it on too many times." Okay, but now we focus on this aircraft model to see how they did with that 2022 release. As always, we start off with the tail section where we, on the vertical stabilizer, have the Qatar Airways branding. On the fuselage, we then find the full registration code of the aircraft. We also find the Qatari flag. Of course, there could have been more detailing in the cabin doors, but this is the standard that Herpa Wings used back in the day, and of course haven't really improved on ever since. But at least we do get a little bit more detailing if we look at the very tail of the aircraft in form of the APU exhaust. At the front of the aircraft and across the fuselage, we then have the writing of Qatar in English, and underneath that, the name of the airline in Qatari or Arabic. I won't try to pronounce it, but with the help of Google Translate,
الخطوط الجوية القطرية,
or something along those lines. And on the other side, we then have it kind of turned around. In the sheet line, we have the English writing Qatar Airways, and above that we have some Arabic writing that I was unable to identify. So if you know what that says, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Apart from that, we have a few markings or ports on the fuselage, as well as the One World logo, of which the airline is a full member. Underneath, another little logo, and then in between the sheet line, so in the white line basically, we have the name of the aircraft, I presume, which is placed right underneath the cockpit windows, which leads us to the cockpit section itself, where we have the cockpit windows with the window wipers printed on. Underneath the nose, we have the aircraft type specification, and while that is all nice, I would have wished for a few more details like petro tubes. That would have been a lovely addition on the 777. The engine itself have been kept in all white, just as most of the fuselage, but we do have the silver leading edge printed on, we have the safety markings printed on, and then the 25-year anniversary logo of Qatar Airways, actually looking really lovely with this golden writing here. Now, a known issue with the General Electric 90 engines of Herpa Wings is that they are too squeezed on their Scale 500 models. That's also the case here. But apart from that, I think the physical detailing of the engines is quite nice, and they overall do look quite lovely, especially here also from the front. Very, very nice. You can see the engine fan blades. And from the engines, we can then take a look here at the fuselage just above the wings, where we have the emergency exit printed on, leading us straight to the wings. Now, here on the top side, we have the different flap slats and spoilers carved out very nicely. We have the markings for the emergency exit printed on, as well as this thick black line, which is a visual indication for pilots for the outer edges of the main landing gear. The underside of the wing has more nice physical detailing, including the full registration code of the aircraft once again. And now let's take a look at the landing gear. Now, the main landing gear, that is of course the standard landing gear that Herpa uses for all their 777-300 aircraft in Scale 500, looking just fine. Also, the front landing gear quite nice, but I would have wished for some printed details. On the belly of the aircraft, we do have the Qatar branding, which however is slightly being destroyed by a hole in the fuselage for a stand that is not included with this aircraft model. What a silly decision. Now, this aircraft has also been equipped with sat domes, and if we compare it to the real aircraft, here on the image we can see, yes, surely there is a big sat dome at the front of the aircraft, and we can just about see there is a small sat dome in the back as well. Now, the sat dome that Herpa has added here in the front, yeah, I think that could be pretty close to what real life shows us. However, the sat dome in the back on this aircraft model for me is oversized. I think a print would have been the better solution here. And then last but not least, we do also have the doors to the cargo compartments printed on here at the back of the aircraft and also here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Boeing 777-300ER and the 25th anniversary retro livery of Qatar Airways from Herpa Wings in scale 1 to 500. And what can we say about this aircraft model? Now overall, Herpa is following their standards in terms of details on this aircraft model. So the amount of details we get on this model is not less, but certainly also not more than we would get from Herpa Wings back in 2022, but actually also not really today. Although in recent times on 777 freighters, Herpa has started adding, for example, petro tubes, which is something I really would like to see on more aircraft models. And I would actually have expected them to also add that to passenger versions of the 777. That appears not to be the case just yet. Of course, also in 2022, that was not the case. But again, I mean, when we look at images of the real aircraft, it's actually not that much missing in terms of detailing. Some petro tubes, maybe a few more sensors or ports around, and a bit more detailing in the cabin doors. And then Herpa would actually, with at least this model, be on a level when it comes to detailing where you would say, okay, now there isn't that much more that you could add from real life. And it would really just enhance the model. Of course, at the prices from Herpa Wings, that should already be the standard, but it just isn't. But okay, let's judge the model for what it is at 2022 release. I think Herpa has overall managed to recreate this retro livery. I do actually believe it's kind of a fake retro livery. I don't think Qatar has ever flown in these colors, but even if they did, the question is, of course, how has Herpa actually managed to recreate this livery? And in terms of placement of stuff, yeah, that's fine. In terms of colors, I mean, the images that I have, the colors are certainly more potent, where on the model it definitely goes more into the brown tones. Now, I have for sure seen images where we get close to the colors that we have here on the model, but that has been mainly in shadowy conditions, so it really depends on the light conditions of the images and how the color is then perceived. But I still think that they, at least for the color they used on this aircraft model, perhaps didn't quite get the spectrum that the color can be perceived in as we see on the real aircraft. So yeah, technically I would say probably not quite the right color, but as long as we can still at least get some images from real life in certain light conditions that get close to this, I wouldn't completely write it off. But it is something you should be aware of before you buy the aircraft model if this is something you can live with. In any case, this is not as much as an offender as the most recent Qatar 787-9 from Herpa Wings, which of course in any scenario just was completely wrong. And on that note, it is time to end today's review. A big thanks to iCare spotter Nuno for providing me with these lovely images of the aircraft in real life. Now, if you enjoyed this video, then feel free to leave a like. If you are new around here, why not hit subscribe? And with that, thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.